glance, the Cobra Kai universe might seem like just another cash grab designed to feast on our collective nostalgia, just like so many other franchises being brought back to life by Hollywood. However, upon closer inspection, it becomes evident that this saga has something unique to say. It not only shines light on some of the forgotten characters that didn't get their due back in the day, but also has some pretty poignant points to make about the strange transition period between adolescence and adulthood. And nowhere is this approach more visible than in the character of Johnny Lawrence, the main antagonist of the 1984 film, whom the new series imagines as a sympathetic character trying to get over his flaws. Today, we are going to take a deeper look at one of the lesser-known stories from Lawrence's life, which originates from the 2019 graphic novel, Cobra Kai. The Karate Kid saga continues. But before we move on to all the punching and the crane kicks, please take a moment to hit the like and subscribe buttons. It might just be a small click for you, but to us, it means an awful lot. With that out of the way, put on your headbands, because here we go. Cobra Kai, the saga continues. The comic book, written by Denton J. Tipton and illustrated by Kagan McLeod, began publication in 2019 under IDW Publishing. The book provides a pretty unique spin on a story that we already love, and let's witness the events of the first Karate Kid from Johnny's point of view. Needless to say, it reveals a lot about the blonde bully that we didn't really know before. The comic takes us back to the familiar town of Encino Hills, California. In 1979, we find a young Johnny sitting at the breakfast table, calmly having his cereal and earphones plugged deep into his ears. His mother reminds him to wear the helmet on his way to school, but the boy is just too lost in the music. That is when his stepfather, Sid, descends down the stairs and smacks the boy on the back of his head. The balding, pot-bellied man kisses Johnny's mother goodbye, and as he leaves, we see Johnny write the words, "Dad sucks," using his alphabetic cereal. Then, the boy puts on a new cassette into his Walkman and swiftly drives down the street when he spots a leather-clad man entering a strange building. Inside the building, boys wearing GIs are practicing karate, and the words Cobra Kai Karate are scribbled across the front of the complex. Needless to say, it's love at first sight for young Johnny. Then, the story skips ahead to 2018, when a much older Johnny narrates the story of how he got into Cobra Kai to his pupils, Robinson, Aisha, and Hawk. The teenagers are still unimpressed and still seem pretty doubtful about their chances in the rapidly approaching karate tournament. This leads Johnny to yet another story about his glory days. This time, taking place in a movie theater back in 1982. This scene depicts Johnny's first encounter with Ollie Mills, the woman who would eventually become his girlfriend. We see the two get along as time progresses, and eventually, Johnny opens up about how his sensei, Kreese, is like the only true father figure in his life. Under the ruthless teacher's guidance, Johnny ends up winning the All-Valley Under-18 tournament 2 times consecutively. This turns him into something of a local star, and it's not long before all the attention starts getting into the young boy's head. Back in the present, we see Johnny boast about how he didn't give up a singular point during his tournament victories. They ask him about what happened in the tournament the following year in 1984, and Johnny tells them that he trained harder than Rocky Balboa for that particular tournament. However, he soon dismisses them, and we travel to a sunny field back in 1984. Johnny and his friends seem to be waking up at a picnic spot with a bunch of empty beer cans littered all around them. It's clear that they had a pretty good time last night, but Johnny realizes in the middle of his hangover that he ended up missing Ali's birthday. Though he rushes to the family fun center as fast as he can, Ali is in no mood to forgive him. After berating him for his habits, Ali leaves as Johnny pukes into a nearby trash can. A couple of months later, while riding bikes with his friends, Johnny discovers Ali partying by the beach. This is, of course, the famous beach fight scene from the original movie, but this time, it unfolds from Johnny's perspective. Seeing Ali getting along with LaRusso awakens deep-seated jealousy within Johnny, and he ends up interrupting the party to talk to Ali. Seeing Ali struggle against Johnny, LaRusso decides to step in and, well, gets his ass handed to him. After beating up Daniel, Johnny drives away, but this time, we follow the boy as he rides away on his bike. A single tear drips down his eye, and we know that Johnny's feelings for Ali are pretty real. Back in the real world, Johnny has another sip of his beer and finds himself tearing up again. The next issue begins at West Valley High School, where Johnny and his friends boast about how Johnny beat Daniel to a pulp. Despite this, Ali seems to be quite attached to LaRusso, and that is something that Johnny just can't take. Thus, he continues bullying Daniel by placing some blueberry pie on the place where Daniel was about to sit. The newcomer, however, proves that he is no pushover, walks straight up to Johnny, and spreads the pie all across his shirt. A fight in the cafeteria ensues, and Daniel gets beaten up again. We travel to 2018, where we see that this is all a continuation of Johnny's story, and he tells the students how he and his Cobra Kai friends made Daniel's life a literal hell. However, in between all the bullying, we also catch a glimpse of Johnny's relationship with his stepfather. Johnny tries to seek advice from Sid regarding winning Ali back, but the man is just too drunk and distracted. He just tells his stepson that Ali is actually out of his league. We then see Johnny's perspective of the party scene from the first film. Johnny is rolling up a joint inside a bathroom stall when someone douses him with a hose. Suspecting that it was LaRusso who pulled that stunt, Johnny's gang chases LaRusso down. After cornering him near a metal fence, the group beat up Daniel so badly that he can no longer stand up. Johnny seems particularly enraged, and his frustration begins to show in a really brutal fashion. Fortunately, before his group can deal with any real damage, Mr. Miyagi shows up on the spot and beats up the bullies with a spectacular display of his karate skills. The next day, Miyagi and Daniel show up at Johnny's dojo, where the merciless Kreese challenges Daniel to a bout. But as most of you probably know, things get a little too personal between Miyagi and Kreese. Thus, the two masters agree to have their students face off in the All-Valley Karate Tournament, but with the condition that no one can lay a hand on Daniel until the day of the competition. And thus begins one of the greatest underdog stories we have ever known. And well, Johnny doesn't really come out on top this time around. The third issue kicks off with a scene at the video game arcade, where we see that Johnny's gang is still considerably injured by their encounter with Mr. Miyagi. In the present, that is in 2018, Johnny tells his students to always be careful of the LaRussos, as they will always steal the things that are rightfully yours. We go back to 1984, where Daniel is sort of taking advantage of the fact that Johnny can't hit him anymore. He boasts in front of the other students, mocking the wounds on Johnny and his friends' faces. Moreover, things seem to be going pretty well between him and Ali, which enrages Johnny to an even greater extent. Just then, a teacher passes by the group, and Daniel uses the pretext of an extra history lesson to drive Johnny away. Later, at the Cobra Kai dojo, Johnny is working even harder than usual. Despite this, Kreese is merciless and belittles his students at even the slightest sign of weakness. That night, Johnny spots Ali and Daniel at the carnival while driving around in his car. They mock Daniel for the fact that he has his mom there to pick him up, and even make fun of Mrs. LaRusso for the old car she is driving. All this time, Johnny is certain that Ali will eventually come back to him, as she deserves much better than Daniel. We then travel to a celebration taking place at the Encino Oaks Country Club, where all the wealthy residents of the city seem to have gathered. Johnny spots Ali walking in with her parents, but it's evident that she doesn't have any interest in him. She declines Johnny's request to dance and ends up dancing with her father instead. Ali's father seems pretty dismissive of Daniel and would rather have her dance with Johnny instead. Forced to dance with a man she doesn't like, Ali frequently endures until the song comes to an end. But suddenly, Johnny spots Daniel lurking at the door, and this prompts him to lean in for a forced kiss. Of course, this angers the girl, but before she can react, a loud crash disrupts the party. The room turns to find Daniel at the door, where he seems to have crashed into a waiter carrying a plate of spaghetti. As the room bursts into laughter, Ali punches Johnny and walks away. But even then, Lawrence can't hide the massive grin on his face. Eventually, Johnny gets a thorough talk from his parents, who seem to be more concerned about the fact that Ali's powerful father could make Johnny's stepfather's life at work extremely difficult. The next day, Johnny loses a bout at the dojo. However, the opponent is reluctant to strike him down, which prompts Kreese to attack the poor boy. After the class, Kreese talks to Johnny and asks him to forget the girl. We learn that the ruthless sensei was once a soldier in the Vietnam War. Due to this, Kreese was forced to leave behind the love of his life, and by the time he came back from the war, it was all over. According to Kreese, for Johnny to win, it would be necessary to first move on. Sometime later, Johnny delivers the entry form for the Valley Championship to LaRusso. The two enemies exchange a few words, and LaRusso asks Johnny whether he has wondered whether his teacher is actually wrong. This leaves Johnny speechless, and he just walks away with a half-hearted threat. We return to the video arcade, where Daniel is trying to catch Ali's attention. Strangely, Ali does not respond, and walks away when Daniel taunts her by asking her if all her courtesy is reserved for people with fancy cars. Johnny watches the girl walk away crying, and for a moment, it seems like he might just have a chance to win her back. The next issue depicts the climactic tournament in the film from Johnny's perspective. We see the members of the Cobra Kai, as well as Daniel, clash against multiple competitors. As the event progresses, Johnny grows more and more frustrated, seeing Ali stand firmly by Daniel's side, and his methods keep getting more ruthless. Thanks to Kreese's encouragement, in the semifinals, Bobby Brown, another member of the Cobra Kai, faces off against LaRusso, who has been outstanding so far in all his fights. Thus, Kreese tells Bobby to attempt an illegal strike to put Daniel out of competition, despite knowing that it would cause Bobby to be disqualified. Like an obedient student, Bobby breaks Daniel's leg and ends up forfeiting the competition. In 2018, when Johnny is still narrating the story to his students, we learn that he has now grown to dislike such dishonorable methods. He reminds his pupils that the dojo no longer condones such methods to ensure victory, but still, he asks them not to feel too sorry for Daniel. Back at the tournament, Johnny is just about to be handed the trophy when Daniel miraculously makes it back to the arena. The two bitter enemies crash hard with all their might. They seem pretty equal, matching each other blow for blow. This frustrates Kreese, who instructs Johnny to sweep Daniel's injured leg, despite growing more and more doubtful of his sensei's methods. Johnny agrees and delivers a devastating elbow that almost renders Daniel immobile. But somehow, even in the face of these dirty tactics, Daniels keeps rising again and again. Then, in a moment of sheer brilliance, LaRusso pulls off the iconic crane kick that all of us have been unable to get out of our heads for like 40 years at this point. As the competition ends and the crowds begin to cheer for Daniel, Kreese walks out the back door without even speaking to his injured students. This seems to provide Johnny with a moment of clarity, and he ends up handling the trophy to Daniel himself. In 2018, Johnny and his pupils leave the dojo. After practice, as they walk away, the pupils promise their master that they will bring the trophy back to the Cobra Kai dojo. A much wiser Johnny reminds the group that to become a true champion, a fighter must fight for way more than a mere dojo. Now, that's what you call a redemption arc. Marvelous verdict. Who knew that a bully we had all grown to hate had so many issues of his own? No wonder he was angry and frustrated all the time. But the comic also shows us how Johnny has managed to grow beyond his past failures, with time turning, becoming a much better teacher than Kreese ever was. Perhaps there's always room for growth, even if you end up falling victim to the most devastating head kick of all time. What do you think? Has Johnny Lawrence really changed? Do let us know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with all our Marvelous content. That's it for this one, and we will catch you soon in our next Marvelous video.